All right, I saw one over there that I know for sure I'm going to pick. This is an easy one, too, by the way. It's Aliens, plural. Aliens, greatest screenplay ever written. Not only that, I don't think that Alien is my second favorite in the whole list either. So I have to put at least one Coen on. And since it's just kind of standing out, I'm going to go with Fargo. Fargo, all-time great movie. Probably one of my favorite genres is dirtbag crime. So Dirtbag Crime, one of the best dirtbag crime movies there is. So what I'm ultimately going to choose is I'm going to choose Fellowship, because Fellowship is perfect, and it's the best of the three by a wide margin. It has everything. Is this extended edition as well? The one I was thinking about taking, though, is one of the most underrated movies of all time, which is Galaxy Quest. Love Galaxy Quest. So I think I'll go with those three for Desert Island. Why? Because Lord of the Rings is like 6 hours long, which is great, so you can pass the time. It's super rewatchable. Fargo, also super rewatchable, and as I said, gets better every time you watch it. And Aliens, it's a horror movie, or at least horror adjacent, and best screenplay ever written. So there you go. My name is Adam Newman. I'm a writer, director, and producer working with Dreamscape Productions, and you're watching the Film Stock Podcast.
I guess that's a good segue then. So, this is great because we don't know each other. I'm curious. You had mentioned earlier around 19 you got interested. Like, is that when you knew you were going to make films? Like, was it just lightning in a bottle?
It was. So I knew I was going to be a writer of some sort always.
You've always kind of had that in you?
Yeah. Since I could write. I used to watch my step-uncle, play Final Fantasy VI. And I would just read the story that was going on while it was happening, and then I would just write versions of that with my friends in it. So it'd just be like my friends kicking people's asses on a mountain. And so I started doing that, and then I really thought I was going to be a playwright in high school, and because I ended up taking a playwriting class for an elective, and I was like, oh man, I was not good at doing my homework, but that's when I instantly, I was on the bus, immediately was writing the play and then writing another version of it and then writing a different thing. And it was pretty clear that I was really into it. And then it was when I was 19 was when I got when I found Magnolia in like a bargain bin after hearing my playwright teacher talk about it. And I said, all right, I gotta watch this. And when I watched it, I said, whatever this is, I need to pursue this. Yeah. And I watched it again immediately. And I was like, oh, you can make movies like that. That's really cool. And it was always a part of my life, but I never really thought about the process of making it. I just thought about writing stories. That was the most important thing. And then, at 19, it was kind of like, oh, okay, I'm seeing this. And I had always, I don't want to sound pretentious, but I had always dreamt, and I only dream in movie angles. I don't dream in first person. I don't show up in a lot of my dreams. Yeah. A lot of times I'm just witnessing things from, you get a Dutch angle and, stuff like that. So, that was kind of the, light switch kind of went on there. And it was like, okay, now it's time to really start studying this stuff. That's kind of.
We were talking about behind the scenes earlier in the conversation. Mm-hmm. Have you seen the Magnolia behind the scenes?
Mm-hmm. Of course,
that's one of my favorite behind the scenes documentaries that's ever been made.
It's so damn. I'm so glad that you've watched it because it's
too many times.
Yeah. Okay. So you like Magnolia?
I'm a huge Magnolia fan.
Oh, thank God. Okay.
But it's interesting because it's like it's totally rewatchable, but it's also not. Like, it's kind of one of those movies that, when you watch it, you're enamored by the craftsmanship, you're enamored by the acting, but it just gets so heavy. It like hits, I don't know, for me anyway, it hits like very deep.
No, that's fair. Especially it didn't as much the father stuff, but it really, especially as my father's like aging now and he's having some health complications, it like, even going back and thinking about it, it's like, oh my God, there were layers to this movie that I wasn't thinking about nearly as consciously. Yeah, you're dead on. I think it is like super rewatchable and also incredibly not rewatchable because it's a mammoth. It's 3 hours and 15 minutes or whatever it is. But it was one of those movies that when, I had like the movie channels and it was just showing, we'd throw it on halfway through and then you just what's great is you can just get invested in one of the little stories every time because there's so many going on. And so, love that movie. And then, what you said, the behind the scenes was huge. It was absolutely huge. I remember when he was just talking about like, oh, I want to have an ever moving camera. And I was like, why? Why would you do that? It didn't make any sense to me, but now that's the only thing I want is a moving camera. And PTA ended up being, especially because I went back and watched, Boogie Nights, obviously huge. And, I like, what I should call it Sydney because that's what he wants it to be called.
Yeah,
Hard Eight.
Yeah, not Hard Eight.
Not Hard Eight.
Fuck Hard Eight.
Yeah, exactly. But Sydney's a good movie. I love Punch Drunk. I just saw it I don't know if you guys have ever been in the Coolidge Corner Theater, but I went.
I love the Coolidge.
Yeah, so I saw an after midnight showing of Punch Drunk on a big screen.
Did they project it?
They did. Yeah, it was so cool. It was so cool to see. And so, that era of Paul Thomas Anderson really got me invested in stories, especially because he wasn't writing things that were necessarily play-like, but it was high drama. Magnolia is high drama. There's a lot of crying. There's a lot of screaming. There's a lot of intensity. And so, yeah, that kind of started me down that path, was that and watching that featurette of the behind the scenes, yeah.
I love at the end of it, they're like, 15 days over schedule, and they're on the stage, and he's like, nobody wants to make this fucking movie anymore. I don't want to make this movie anymore.
Well, and it's crazy looking back. I'm 37, and Paul Thomas Anderson, I don't remember how old he was, but mid-20s. He was
late 20s.
Yeah, I was going to say he was not 30. And I remember thinking him as such an adult watching him do that. And now you go back and you see, you're like, he's a child, and like the fact that he was running a set with Julianne Moore and Tom Cruise and all of these people, the movie's a miracle that it ever came out. It's a miracle that any human beings ever watched it. And then I think it's like a miracle of a viewing experience too.
Yeah, they don't make movies like that anymore. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, no, it's a shame. And even like what he's gone off and done technically is incredible. But for some reason, I just have a hard time with I like The Master, but like when it comes to, oh boy, what was the
Phantom Thread, Licorice Pizza?
Yeah, I really disliked Licorice Pizza. I saw that projected as well, and I did not like it. And Phantom Thread is one of those movies I've tried several times. I think the movie looks gorgeous, but it's one of those things where I still kind of consider PTA my guy. But he's just kind of matured, and I haven't yet. Sure. I feel like it's one of those things I'm going to come back.
You'll catch up with him.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll come back and be like, you know what, Phantom Thread is the best movie ever made. Something like that.
Phantom Thread really hit me. I was in a weird relationship at the time.
Clearly,
we weren't poisoning each other or anything like that. But it was just like such a weird dynamic that like that movie hit for me. But this is interesting. I was actually going to bring this up in regards to Punch Drunk Love. The first time I ever found like the true power of, we all listen to John Williams and seen Jurassic Park, et cetera, et cetera. But the first time I truly understood the power of music in a movie, and I have a point I'm going to make. I was taking a nap and I had just like thrown on Punch Drunk Love, and I must have not been like fully asleep or whatever. But the soundtrack to Punch Drunk Love,
John Bryan.
I was like, something is wrong. Something like in my sleep, I'm like, no, something's not right. Sure. And I woke up, and sure enough, it was the soundtrack. But Phantom Thread for me, it was the soundtrack that really just. I think the biggest shame is that Johnny Greenwood didn't win the Oscar for that.
I try not to get frustrated about Oscars.
No, you can't.
Yeah,
you can't.
It's like you can do that game all day. But you're so right. The score is incredible. And I remember the first 30 minutes of Phantom Thread, I thought, I'm watching the best movie ever made. I did think that when they're first falling in love and stuff like that.
It's beautiful.
Oh, it's so good. And the two of them, I can't believe, well, first of all, Daniel Day-Lewis goes off and is a cobbler now or something like that. Yeah. I know he's making his comeback.
I heard he's making violins.
Yeah, I believe it. I mean, he's the greatest actor of all time. Vicky Krieps, I think, is the lead. Yeah, and she's great.
That was her first movie.
I wish she was in more stuff. I just saw a trailer. I can't remember what it was for, but it looks like she's showing up in some movies. That woman should be put in every single movie there is because she's unbelievable. And then obviously Leslie Manville too.
She's so good.
So good in that movie. I just wish, sometimes I talk about this with my friends. Sometimes there's just like a movie that doesn't agree with you, and you're watching it and you're like, this has all of the aspects of things that I love, but for some reason we're just not seeing eye to eye.
Well, that's the cool thing about movies. Maybe you agree. It's just like, it's an experience, and depending on where you are in your life or whatever, emotional state, whatever baggage you're bringing to that first viewing experience, I feel like will dictate a lot of it.
It's so true. And it's, because I haven't watched Magnolia in 10 years because I'm terrified. I don't want to get back and be like, oh, the thing that made me love this so much doesn't work anymore. That is terrifying, but it does happen where I see things like, you know what? I just saw one of the movies when I was picking out things. There's 12 Monkeys over there, and I tried 12 Monkeys. I'm like, what am I watching? And then I went back to 12 Monkeys. I'm like, oh, it's a goddamn masterpiece. It's so unbelievably good. It is weird. It's just like, it's your state of mind. It's sometimes I can't get through Spaceballs because I always fall asleep for some reason.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, there's a lot of those movies. And then like you'll come back to it later and all of a sudden you're like, oh, it's actually
just kind of clicks.
Yeah, it's so weird. And you're right. It's like, what are you bringing at the time? Who are you at that time? And so whenever someone doesn't like one of our movies, which happens, you kind of go, oh yeah, it's fine, it's okay. They're just like maybe they're not in that place, maybe they never will be.
Yeah.
But the fact is, like, it doesn't mean it's good or it's bad. It just means it wasn't for them, and they didn't necessarily agree with the thing. So no, that's what I love about movies too, is that it feels like even though they're staying the same, they're always changing.
They're
too.
always changing.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's so cool when you get to go back and learn more about them.
So when did you first get into directing? Like, did you do like the short film route, or did you just break out with feature after feature?
It started with features, unfortunately.
Did it really?
Yeah, well, because I didn't know. I graduated high school in 2006, and so it was like 2007 or 2008, and I didn't know how people made movies. YouTube wasn't really a thing at the time.
Sure.
So all it was kind of word of mouth, and I had made some, for like art projects in high school. My dad would show me how to do VCR to VCR.
Oh wow!
And yeah,
so you didn't even deal with like the mini DVs.
Mini DV was where I shot my first feature. So
get out.
But my dad was just showing me how to do the process of editing, and we would always do a scene where we go back in time and we'd use the light speed from Star Wars. We'd sneak it in there, and so I started learning from there. And that's when I used a mini DV camera to shoot my first feature, which was a 150-page script. That was it's bad. It's called Details, and it's very,
comedy,
very
drama,
it's
horror.
It's like Clerks, which was at the time, and it's black and white, of course. And I learned a lot on it, but I had no idea that was the wrong thing to do.
So you just had either the confidence or the naivety to just be like, no, here I go.
It's more ignorance. Yeah, it's not confidence. I mean, no, it was arrogance. When I came out of high school, I was very arrogant. I was very convinced that I was a genius and that everybody's just, they're waiting to tell me.
Yeah.
And so I thought, oh yeah, I'm just going to make this movie and I'm going to become huge and famous and all that type of stuff. And the movie was a disaster. Nobody saw it. There was no distribution angles at that point either. So barely anybody saw it. And I learned a lot from it, which was great. I didn't even think about short films. I didn't know they were things. They weren't things that people were talking about or anything like that. I had always gone to the movies. I got in the movies tons of times throughout my life. And we were talking earlier about Lord of the Rings. That was a huge experience for me. I remember seeing Minority Report with my mom in the theater and talking about it for hours afterwards. All of these things are huge for me. So I just went, oh, you just have to make features. That's the only thing you can do. So I made that feature to start. And then I started learning, okay, you can actually make some shorts. I made a couple of shorts. I had a directing partner back then.
Okay.
And then I kind of went through just like a phase of not making as much stuff. I was writing a lot, but wasn't getting anything made. And I got really sick of it. I wanted to get back out there, and I was reading Lloyd Kaufman's book, Make Your Own Damn Movie, the guy from the Trauma guy. And as I was reading it, I was like, oh, I can make a trauma movie. That's easy. But I was really obsessed with Richard Linklater at the time. I said, okay, well, what if I made a feature that was a Linklater movie as if Trauma made it? And so from there is where I kind of really, it was probably when I was 26 or 20, maybe 27 or 28 is when I really got back into it. And I don't want to make shorts. I've made a couple of them. I made a very expensive one too. It was $50,000 short. And it's
a lot of special effects. What we got going on there?
It was stunts, and so we hired a stunt coordinator for it. It starts off, the first half of it is like a sci-fi romance, and then the second half of it, it's like a Jackie Chan fight scene.
Oh, cool!
So like 15 minutes of fighting, and I hate shaky cam fighting. I love fighting where it feels like people are getting hit.
Yeah,
and I wanted it to be slapstick. I wanted it to be kind of funny. I was watching a lot of Buster Keaton stuff, obviously a lot of the older Jackie Chan stuff, and so made something like that for $50,000, really just to say, hey, can I raise $50,000? Can I find a way to do it? And it took us a year and a half, but we did it. But ever since then, I've been like, why am I doing this? The best way for people to see things, for the most part, if you want people that aren't just filmmakers to watch your movies, is probably to make features. It's also the thing that I've watched the most, and so I know how to structure it the best. I obsess over it and I think about it. It's the first thing I think about, last thing I think about, as I go to bed. So yeah, it's just been kind of like, let's focus on features. I'd love to do a TV show one day, but that ends up being just like 6 features. So it's like, features seem to be a good spot for me. And shorts, I don't know, I just feel like it's very difficult to get them out there.
Well, I think it's also interesting that you brought up, like, you watch features.
Yeah, it's what I'm obsessed with. Yeah,
I feel the same way in regards to. So, like, I come from the short background.
Okay, sure.
I don't watch shorts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I don't know anybody that watches them. They're just pretty much like calling cards. It's like, hey, this is something I did.
Yeah, and it felt like so many times I was sold,
not to knock shorts.
No.
Like,
And there are some great shorts that for sure, but one, they're tough to see because where do you see them? You don't seek them out is another part of it. And I was kind of sold this lie. I think all of us were, that were part of my generation, which was that, what you do is you just make a short and then it gets into Sundance. It
Thanks
just
a lot,
does.
PTA.
Yeah, exactly.
But seriously, that's
what
why
it was.
I bought into.
Yeah, and so it was like,
he can do it.
Yeah, and so you just make this short and then you assume you're going to get into Sundance, or you're going to get into Cannes, or you're going to get into any of these big festivals. That's going to happen. And then a producer is going to show up and is going to say, here's a bunch of money.
Let's do this.
Yeah, let's go make a feature now. And you go, thank you for this $10 million. I'll go and do that now. And it just never happened. And it never happened for all of us. You know, it was all of us were making what I thought were good shorts, even good features, and sending them out there. And we're getting into some festivals, but it's like when you go and sit at the festival, oftentimes it's you and the festival director and 2 other people who are very passionate about film, and they're awesome. They're some of the best people I've met. But that's it. You're not sitting there with distributors. You're not sitting there with anybody like that. And so it became kind of clear to me, okay, well, in order to make features, the things that I want to make, this short route isn't going to happen.
You just got to fucking do it.
Yeah, that was something from it seems like it was something from the 90s or 2000s. And I had watched a couple of the shorts that got people more jobs, but then you end up finding out oftentimes they don't get people more jobs. Or if they do, they get pigeonholed into that. I kind of think it's, oh boy, I can't remember his name right. Justin Lin, the guy who made, he now does all the Fast and Furious movies.
Okay.
But he did Better Luck Tomorrow, and which is was like a feature that was in the festival circuit. And he said it was almost impossible for him to get work after that. And the movie is great. It's where like John Cho came from. And so many of these people, even when they got their movies recognized by these big festivals, they still weren't able to necessarily go and make the thing that they wanted to make. And so I started doing this thing, and it was, again, being naive. I was like, I can make features, and I can make them for $1,000. I'll just buy food for everybody, and everybody will show up, and we'll work on weekends, and that's what we did. It worked for the most part.
Yeah.
Early, yeah, of course. You get a lot of passionate people. You learn pretty quickly the people that you're going to continue working with. You also learn relatively quickly the people you're not going to, because they stop showing up. And when an actor stops showing up, you just have to accept it in those terms because they're not getting paid.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we started. Once I kind of had that rebirth, I made a movie called Scarlet K for $1,000, and then I made a feature called Ice Patrol for $2,000. It got distribution, which is bullshit, honestly. Like, I shouldn't be. It shouldn't.
Why do you say that?
Well, I mean, like the fact that it happened, and like we were just, I was so anti structure at the time. I was like, I just want to make something that's all about the vibes, man. And so I was thinking that, and all I wanted to do was just get together and do this thing. I never thought about it getting in front of an audience. I just wanted to make something. And then we were very lucky that we got to a film festival, and they really stood up for it. And they said, like, I think this is really good stuff. And they got us a distribution deal. Now, of course, it has not made tons of, it made me my money back, but the $2,000. But I started, I was seeing that, okay, I can make these things. And yeah, at some point I want to start paying these people. Of course, they're skilled craftsmen. And so I just started going like, okay, but I'm very passionate about this. And when you start talking about to people passionately about the thing that you're interested in, we were kind of talking about this before, they kind of want to throw stuff at you. And that like I like that you are artistic. And when I always thought about Julius Caesar, which is weird. I'm going somewhere with it.
Yeah,
where Caesar, I was told in middle school that Julius Caesar was such a great leader because what he would do is he'd rile up the troops, and then he'd go and be in the front of the line and then bring them forward. And so I couldn't stop thinking about that. I was like, okay, if I just continue to show that I'm passionate, and if I wake up before everybody else and I go to bed later than everybody else, and they see that this is like what I'm eating and breathing and sleeping, most people will latch on to that. People love passion. They really do. And so it was that $1,000 feature, $2,000 feature. And then it was like, okay, well, let's see if we can get some money. That was the $50,000 short. And then we made a $60,000 feature. And then this most recent one, I shouldn't share the budget, but it's certainly more than 4 times that. So,
hell yeah.
Yeah. And it's always been because I just kind of started realizing that nobody was going to show up. Nobody can be the hero except yourself. And so every single time it's like, I am a nut job. And that is a good thing in this regard. I'm willing to self-start. I can always get the ball rolling. I can get people going about it. And I'm so delusional with some things where I go like, of course we can shoot this in 18 days. Or, of course we can shoot this at the bottom of a mine or whatever it is, Yeah. So you have to have a little bit of that delusion. But yeah, no, it was just a lot of, hey, how do I self-start? And mirrored what I was doing at the time too, when I was working at a golf course and things like that, where it was like, oh, I have witnessed this, and I've witnessed how things in the business world work, where it's like so often I would be in a meeting where people were just talking about things that were going to get done. So many people talk about the movie that they're writing or this, the story that they want to tell, and then they just don't do it for 10 years. And that's incredibly frustrating to me. And I saw it in the business world where nobody would implement any of their ideas. It's like, well, if you just did the damn thing, we would have an understanding. And so I kind of took that mentality to filmmaking and just started saying like, all right, well, I'm just going to start budgeting it and I'll get the ball rolling. And anybody that wants to will just jump on board and they'll be part of the snowman at the end,
God damn.
Yeah.
That's really inspiring.
Thanks. Thank you.
So, kind of starting from the $1,000 feature and working our way forward, like what was that process like? I mean, so you had 1,000, you're saying that you paid like, the crew for, for eating rather.
Yeah.
You fed them.
Yeah.
But like, how many days did you shoot? And like, were you shooting digitally? Were you still on DV tapes or,
No, at that point we had moved over. So I think the first two features I just shot on a Canon T3i, which is a $400 camera, which I got because I worked at Staples for that time and I had a coupon. And so I ended up shooting on that. And I got up when I was reading that book, Make Your Own Damn Movie. I was like, oh, I can do literally everything. All I have to do is just research things. And YouTube was becoming so big at that point. It's like, okay, well, I'm just going to learn how to light things. My movies have always looked like crap. So why don't I learn how to light things myself? Okay. And worst case scenario, I'll be 10 times worse, but I'll be 10 times better than where I was. And so we said, let's just start doing that. I'll research how to light things. And you just learn about 3-point lighting. And then at the same time, I'm watching video essays that are about film form and understanding why you move a camera and why you put a camera in a certain position and what it means, when you break the 180 and these things. And so, and especially back then, I'm like, let's break the 180 every chance we can to make the people feel uncomfortable. Let's do everything we can. Let's just throw the kitchen sink here. Why would we make something typical? Everybody knows we're not making a professional movie. So let's do everything. Let's try everything. And so, I basically that first movie, I have very shaky hands and as you've seen, I'm a lot of energy and I drink a lot of coffee. And, so I basically got one guy who was passionate about movies. I said, hey, will you hold the camera? I'll just tell you exactly where to point it and where to place it all the time. And we'll light it. Me and my buddy, John, I always have been able to rope him into the movies. And so the three of us just did that. When we'd be swapping off who's running sound, all that type of stuff. We got like 4 actors in one beach house, which we were lucky enough that John's dad owns. We shot the movie there, and it was like, oh, okay, well, let's pay a makeup artist $200 to give us some blood and gore, and it's black and white, so we'll just do chocolate syrup. We'll just do that fun thing. And the movie is silly anyway, so anybody who watches it, if they're like, well, this isn't, it's like, look what you're watching. You're watching a trauma movie,
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's what we kept thinking. And then Ice Patrol, I just wanted to go in such a vastly different direction. I wanted, after making this kind of batshit B movie, I wanted to make something like Fargo. I wanted to make something that was a dirtbag crime movie that was a little bit quieter. I was really obsessed with Jeff Nichols movies. He's my favorite filmmaker right now. So like Shotgun Stories and Take Shelter, those 2 movies, and I wanted to make something that was like that, and that the rules of the camera dictated everything. So, and I wanted to put limitations on things and okay, well, let's have the camera crash when something's crashing internally. Again, throwing the kitchen sink. And we did the same thing again. We just worked weekends. We do 3 or 4 day weekends. We had a lot of these people that came on that were aspiring actors, and we did the same thing again. We just had a little bit bigger crew because I put out a crew call, and a lot of them were just people, hey, just got out of college. I'm just looking for anything. And which is so great is because we started making connections with them. The guy who was lighting Ice Patrol is now the guy who's building our sets, and that's what he does professionally. And so it was a lot of that. How many days overall was the shoot? It was probably, Scarlet K was probably 14 days and it was 7 weekends, or something like that. Ice Patrol was probably about 20 days, similar type of thing, where it was long weekends. We're very lucky that, I had a house that we could shoot in, and then we oftentimes just used the house as our lodging. So we'd stay. It was a big farmhouse. Cool. Everybody stays. You end up having summer camp. People are sleeping on floors. We're working bullshit hours. We're doing 20-hour days. We don't, there's no unions or anything like that at the time. We're not thinking about anything like that. Everybody is tired. And then you end up forming this weird bond, though. It's like you've been to war, you know? And so it's this thing where we kind of like, oh, I remember Ice Patrol, you know? I remember how cold it was. I remember how, you know, this, you hear about it with Evil Dead, you know, just even with what was going on with them. And so, yeah, we probably did 14 days that first one, 20 days for that next one. And then as we've started to develop, we started going, okay, if we want to make sure that all of our actors continue coming back, let's pay them. Same thing with our crew, you know, let's pay these skilled craftsmen. And what's great is when you get those people that are skilled, it's one of the hats you can take off as a filmmaker. You know, can I light a movie? Yeah, but it's not going to look great. You know, I can make it look 1/10 as good, but it will take 5 times the amount of time. So, okay, let's bring in a gaff and a grip and a camera team and whatnot, and have them take care of that. And if I can trust them and they're doing good work, they're better than me. They're only going to elevate the material. And so that's kind of how it went. It was just kind of this, it didn't feel like it was something that was building or anything like that. It's just only when you're looking back, you go, oh my God, yeah, no, that was just like, we're stepping stones, you know, and that was the first step. And then we took a big second step, and then, okay, we ended up stagnating on one step, but then we took another big step, you know. So that's kind of how it was. It was the weekends. And then we got to this place where we started doing, you know, I think with Everwinter Night, which was our $60,000 movie. We probably did.
That was the third one.
Yeah, in theory.
Not including
the original. Yeah, kind of in the second life. Yeah, this is the third feature.
Yep.
That's when we were like, all right, let's shoot days in a row. I mean, that ended up being just a chaotic mess because that was supposed to be a different movie, got shut down because of SAG. We had to make a movie on the fly. It's not the way that you're supposed to make a movie. But
you got shut down by SAG?
Yeah, it was right at COVID. And so
Gotcha.
they said, hey, like, you're not meeting the guidelines. And so we lost half of our actors. And we were making a very different movie. We're going to make another, like, quiet Shotgun Stories-esque movie. And so last minute, we had to rewrite the entire movie, a completely different movie. It ended up being like a weird horror comedy instead. And we wrote it the weekend before. So, yeah, we wrote 60 pages. I wrote backwards while my writing partner wrote forwards. And then we were just filming as we went. And then we'd go back and then write the pages for the next days. But at least we were filming in a row. It was like 12 days straight of filming. And then we came back, of course, for reshoots. But
did it all like take place in relatively like one location?
Yes.
Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we knew we had one location for sure because we had got it from the last project. I'm very good at convincing people to lend us their locations for very cheap or for free, which is how I met like my boss. And he's, you know, the person who runs Dreamscape Productions now. I met him because I was reaching out to use his barn for a movie, for a short that we made called Nomad. And he responded with his headshot and said, put me in the movie and you got a location. And now we run a production company together. So again, it's all about connections and things like that.
Now, was he involved in the movies prior to your coming along?
He had acted in one movie.
Your movie?
No. He had acted in a faith-based Christmas movie called Wish for Christmas with Joey Lawrence in it. Okay. But he had always wanted to act. And so he said, like, yeah, just give me a small part in this thing. And he came on board for our thing, and we got along quite well. He's 15 years older than me or something like that, but he's like an incredible character actor. He does not want to be the star. He just wants to have a good role. And so we're like, yeah, we'll just have you as this like zombie thing, and you get to smash through a fake window. He's like, I'm so in. And so he really got wrapped up in that. And then we just continued having conversations. And when it came to Everwinter, he was involved in the process. But me and my buddy had raised $20,000 of our money each. And he eventually came in and said, hey, I want to be on your level. What's it going to take? Well, it's going to take another $20,000. And he said, let's do it. He goes, this is the day right now. I want to make the production company. I want to go forward with this. And that's kind of where we kind of evolved from. So he had always talked about making movies, but he did the same thing that a lot of people do, and I did for a bit, where he was like, oh, I'll get to it. And then eventually he kind of saw it and was like, oh, I'm in love with this.
He kind of latched on to your energy, and it was like,
I think
to the next step.
Yeah, and I think he saw how passionate, not just me, but like our entire crew and, my producers who get paid nothing, and they just like continue to read my scripts and continue to go down this path, and they're wearing so many hats. And he saw like all the hours we were putting in for the thing that we loved, and he also loves doing it. And I think he saw that and went, you know what, this is time. We were living up. He was working up in Waterville Valley, and he was like, let's get rid of this hotel and let's move on. Let's start making movies full time. So yeah, no, it's really, really cool how it kind of, but this is just proof that like it's all, progress. Every project is progress. And then eventually you start making tons of connections like we're doing right now.
Yeah.
And like you make these connections and you have no idea where they're going to go. And you just have to constantly be putting yourself into a position to get lucky. That's the big thing I tell a bunch of people is like, I'm very lucky, but it's because I constantly just threw out cast every line I could, and most of them are duds. And most people are like, no, we're not going to do your stupid movie thing. And then I meet Shawn, or then I meet, like I said, my production designer now is a guy that was lighting our movies when he was 19 years old. And now he's full-time doing this for, he does it for a theater company. And then on his weekends, he comes and he builds us a mine, So yeah, no, it's been kind of cool.
I mean, that's crazy. We were talking a little bit earlier about, the kind of a dream of you do your short, you get money for your feature.
Right.
In a weird way, I don't know. There's something a little bit better about your situation. That seems like the dream is just like putting in the effort, doing what you love. Somebody comes around and notices and now wants to partner with you, and you guys are making movies full time.
It is kind of the dream. It's true. And like I feel bad because there's a couple times where, like I'll be driving a set. I'm like, what am I doing? Like these are awful hours. I'm stressed beyond belief. And then you have to sit back and be like, you're making movies as your profession.
This is
like, shut up.
The dream.
Yeah, exactly. Like this, if you were 10 years old and you saw yourself doing this, you'd be crying because this is exactly what you want to be doing. So,
I want to cry. That sounds like that sounds like the dream that you were living.
And of course, but I sit around and I bitch and I moan because, we don't have huge budgets yet or anything like that. And money is always a problem. It is. And there's already so many headaches. But yeah, no, it really turned out. And I hope it continues to go this way. You never know. I'm assuming at all times the floor is about to fall. Yeah. That the movie I just made is the last movie I'll ever make. I'm always convinced that that's the case. And that's why I have to always have something written or writing. So it's like, okay, at least if I get the ball rolling for the next one, okay, I'll at least get one more out of this because it's going to fall apart. It has to.
Well, it's kind of like, how long can I fool them?
Yeah, it's very much that.
How long can I fool them into bankrolling to play make-believe for a living?
It's so true. But, what it's what's great about my producers is we have these conversations as I get like really in my own head about it. And they'll be like, you can always go back to making movies on the weekends with your friends. That's always going to be there. It's always going to be an option.
I feel like that's the perfect tease to be like, no, fuck you.
Yeah. It does put a giant...
I'm not going to do that.
Of course. But I do know that at the very least, I can always go back. I know I can go back and make a $10,000 movie. I know I can do it. Mm-hmm. And so... And if I can generate $10,000. I can find a way to do that. I know it's difficult to find money. It's difficult to find big money. I think there are ways, there are avenues. We found a way to get $50,000 for a short, So
do you mind if I ask about that?
Of course.
As I produce my own, short films now, eventually the dream is after this conversation, I think that I'm going to shelve any short film I was ever going to make and fucking do a feacher.
I think you should do a feature.
Because you are slight inspiration in that regard.
Well, thank you.
But if you don't mind me asking, because this I feel like is something that, young filmmakers, people who are kind of maybe outside the industry or whatever, they're always curious. Like, how do you go about raising funds? Like, how do you go about, that whole process? Most of us are just, happy to have $1,000. Never mind get somebody to give you $1,000 to make your thing.
Yeah, well, I'm so glad you asked because I want to like demystify a lot of it. I do think it's incredibly doable. I do, to get certain budgets. If you're starting to talk in the $1 million range, it's not going to happen, especially like through crowdfunding. Stop thinking about it like that. Always be thinking about how to strip back your movies. I have a movie it's a feature fantasy. It's a $10 million movie plus. Shelve it. Always have it shelved. Always come back to it and rewrite it and make it better because at some point maybe you get to make that movie. But if you want to make movies, you can make a movie about anything. There's so many different things. And if you're only passionate about one thing, you're not a very interesting person. Be passionate about lots of things. So be honest about your budget and figure out where you can get free stuff or cheap stuff or anything like that. If you know somebody who has a house, start writing a movie around that house. That is a big thing that I've done. But in terms of like obtaining money, so I've run a Kickstarter for a short many years ago, back at the early days of Kickstarter, which was a very small amount, but we were able to make our money for that. We were only asking for $4,500, made $4,800. This was back when I was probably 24 years old, so about 13 years ago. That is very doable when it comes to doing a Kickstarter or anything like that. It's a full-time job, and if you don't treat it like a full-time job, then it's not going to work. Mm-hmm. You have to do months and months of research. you have to be smart about what you do for your perks and things like that if you're going to go this route, which I would not necessarily advertise going for. I'll get into where I would actually go for. But if you're going to do this, you have to do that, and you have to get all of your actors and your crew involved in it too. In terms of they have to be out there presenting it, blasting it. Also, there are ways to be tricky about it to a degree. If you invest money into it right away, more people are more likely to do it. Sure. I immediately put $500 into the movie. People go, oh, I'm not the first person on this thing.
Yeah.
Okay, you know what? Maybe it's going to end up becoming a thing. I'll invest $10 or $15 or whatever. And once you get the ball rolling again, you know, you can't stop it. When it came to the $50,000 for Carolina Shag, which is what we knew we needed in order to make it, we threw fundraisers. We just pieced them basically together. And what I did is I talked about it to every single person, and I ran 2 events. The first one was like just a fundraiser. It was $200 a ticket. We had food, stand-up comedian, silent auction, all those type of things.
That's genius.
Yeah, it was so.
Wow.
And I was so lucky that I had a mentor business-wise when I was working at the golf course. And I said, yeah, I'm thinking about doing it for $50 a ticket, but I want people to spend $200 total. He goes, then charge $200. And I said, yeah, but like they might not come. He goes, the person that's going to give you 50 and wasn't going to give you 200 for the ticket, they weren't going to ever give you 200 anyway. So stop thinking about it like that. Whatever dollar amount you need people to give you, $200, just whatever that number is, just put it in. I said $200. He said, okay, do that. And he goes, now ask everybody. And I go, well, this person might not. He's like, you have no idea who will say yes and no. You never know. And always they're going to be surprised. And I went, yeah. And incredibly surprised at the people that will do it. That will say.
You said you had a couple of fundraisers, or it was just the one?
So I had the main one, which was that silent auction, the stand-up comedy. Then I think we had 2. You know, it was like a 15-minute or 10-minute, and somebody that did 20 minutes.
Okay.
While that happened, we served food. So we baked this all into the price, right? We ended up getting a good deal for some of the food. The stand-up comedians came and did it for a very generous price. Of course, we made that connection because they want to work with the movies later, stuff like that. Then what our biggest thing was, we showed one of our shorts that we had shot. That was about a $7,000 short. And the biggest thing that was important about that was saying, hey, look at our movie. We're not just making home movies. We're making things that are lit and look like real movies.
Yeah.
And so we showed our short Nomad, which now is dated, but at the time, like, it still looks like it's well shot. It's well lit. It's all these type of things. And people went, oh, okay. They're very serious about this. This isn't just a bunch of people running around in their backyards filming things.
Yeah.
They care about this. They're renting things. These look like real movies. So we showed that. And then we had our silent auction. What you were asking, what did we auction off? So first we get a bunch of people to donate things, which is huge. So I worked at a golf course. Foursome of Golf is being donated, something like that. I knew somebody who made custom guitars. They added a custom guitar to this. Yeah, of course I'll build one for that. They build that. Then, of course, we do things that are associated with the movie. Our movie, Carolina Shag, takes place in a bar in space. You get to you get the naming rights of the bar.
Oh, cool.
And so we'll create a sign for it, all that type of stuff. You know, we put a big dollar amount on that. My buddy was very kind and bought it, $10,000.
Get out of here.
Yeah, $10,000. He said, you know what?
Wow.
Yeah, I'll take it. I'll take the name. So we cut the name into the thing.
What was the name?
It's the Voichness, because his last name is Voichness. And so he's been somebody that has put money into all of my movies, and more so each time. But he's not the person that we hang all of our money hopes on, because there was a whole bunch of people. And I came out of that. We probably came out of that with $28,000 or $30,000 ultimately.
Fuck out, really?
Yeah, it was great. It was absolutely huge with tickets. And obviously there were costs that were associated with it.
Did you have to pay for the venue, or were you able to get that for free?
That was Shawn Ward, the guy who I asked about, the guy who was my boss, and who it's the same barn that we used to film Nomad, the short we had shown them, and was also where we were shooting Carolina Shag, where we're building the bar inside of it. So it was cool. We got to get up and do this presentation and go, where you're standing right now looks like a wedding venue, but in about 6 months, it's going to be a bar that's on a moon that's attached to a golf course.
Yeah.
So like, this is what's kind of cool about it. And then we showed the design plans that we had for it. My production designer, again, the guy who was lighting my things when he was 19 years old, had drawn up the plans for it and what it looks like. So everybody gets to walk through and see these displays. One of my actors was the bartender, because he's got a bartending license.
Yep.
He's over there selling drinks. People are walking through, and people are getting pumped about it. They're getting so excited about like these movies that we're going to be making. We're talking about what it's going to look like. We're showing them one of the movies, and we're showing them the things that we're doing. And also, we're in the damn space that we're going to be filming the movie. And so like, that was huge. And like I said, that probably got us $30,000. And then I was very lucky again because I worked at a golf course. I said, why don't I throw a golf tournament? I've run them before. I know what they're like. I know how much money they can and can't make and where you can make money. So we ran a golf tournament, and I don't know how much of a golfer you are. It doesn't matter. I'm a terrible golfer.
I'm like a twice-a-year golfer.
Okay.
9 holes max.
And that's kind of where, like, that's good for golf tournaments. And so we threw a golf tournament, and luckily I obviously got a discounted rate. I made sure to do it on a time that made sense for the golf course.
Yep.
And then we just, in order to make a lot of money on that, we did a lot of on-course games. And so it would be like, hey, on this hole, there's movie trivia. If you put $20 down, you get a movie trivia question. You get it right, you get -1 on your score.
Hell yeah.
You get it wrong, well, we made $20 off of you. And one team showed up and they put down 100 and they said, we're winning this tournament. And they just kept paying and paying and paying. And that's what ended up happening. And then we did another silent auction type of thing.
Yep.
And where we were able to, we were smart about it because, again, my business mentor said, hey, you should really reach out to these framing guys. They do a lot of signed sports memorabilia. And he goes, your movie stuff isn't going to sell to golfers. This sports memorabilia is. And so we ended up making a couple $1,000s off of that. So when it was all said and done, by the time things were done with those two things, we were about $50,000. So it was just two different ways that we went about it rather than doing a Kickstarter, because the Kickstarter I had done back when I was 24, I didn't finish the movie. And so when that happens, which do not do,
you get a
don't
bad
do what I did.
reputation on
You get a bad,
Kickstarter.
exactly. People are going to think, well, I never saw the other movie. And it's like, I've matured past that, but they don't know that yet. And so this is how we're going to do it. Again, though, you have to treat it like a full-time job. It was 1 year of preparing to get that $50,000, in order to get this movie off the ground. And so I had to have several people on board. And, I had my producers who were generous enough to donate their time and to get people to give items for the silent auction and stuff like that. But it is amazing how frequent people are willing to give that. And I can speak as a former director of golf at a golf course. Whenever a charity came up to me and said, hey, can you donate a foursome of golf at your course? Absolutely. Every single time. Didn't matter what the project was. Yes, of course. And so we would give them a voucher for it and they would auction it off and they make $100 off of us or something like that. And if you ask tons of people, they will absolutely do it, especially when it's something for the arts. Even if it's not a charity, even if it's not a tax write-off or anything like that. They're still very passionate about it. So I think that I've just given two examples, examples of things that you can do in order to get funding.
Yeah, but those are really good examples. And I got to be honest, that is some outside the box thinking.
Well, thank you.
I honestly never would have considered that. Nobody that I've talked to up until now has had any ideas like that. I think that's awesome.
Again, it's just like, well, I know I don't have tons of money. I didn't grow up from a family with a ton of money. We were fairly, we're lower middle class here. And so like they couldn't donate anything or anything like that, but we always had to be creative about how to do anything.
Yeah.
And I used to throw plays on in my backyard and stuff like that. And like, oh, okay, well, if we just have this, we use this, or we convince this person to give us this. There's a lot of that. And so, yeah, I think you have to be outside the box when it comes to your thinking, but there are so many ways. And I see it's so unfortunate, and I want to help these people, and I tried to once, and they just said like, "Shut up, dickhead." But like, I want to help these people.
We need to have a conversation with them.
I saw their Kickstarter or their whatever it was, and you see it, and you're like, "Oh man, this is lacking so many things," and I just want to help them. And I don't want to make your movie. I don't care about like, I don't want to tell you how to make it. I just want to tell you like, this isn't going to work, and they're, of course,
here's why.
Yeah, it's like you don't have enough perks. You don't have a video that's doing this. You're not updating constantly. I haven't gotten a message about it. Therefore, you're not doing enough. You have to be bombarding people, and people go, "Oh, I don't want to seem spammy." Why? Right? Like why not? It's like, okay, sure. Someone gets annoyed by you and they defriend you on Facebook. Who cares? Like, what does that matter? That doesn't matter at all. It's so silly, and it's everybody's answer currently right now is no. It's no. It's default no. So if you ask, the chances are it's still a no, but there's a chance it's a yes. So if you came to me right now and said, "Hey man, I'm going to make a short, I don't care what the project is, short feature, is there any way you can donate, $250?" I might go like, $250 is a little bit steep for me. Okay. All right, cool. What about $125? That will pay for the crew to eat for the day. And I might go, $125, I could do $125. I could do that. And you just made $125 off me. Now, you just do that several times and you're going to end up making a movie. So like it's a lot of, and I hope that people you just have to get over making people uncomfortable by asking for money, because the answer is right now is no. And it is still likely no.
But until you ask.
Until you ask, you have no idea. And like I said, I cannot believe learning from that experience of doing that fundraiser. The people that came and bought tickets are the opposite people that I thought were going to buy tickets. There were people that didn't have a lot of money that I knew. I worked at the golf course. There was this girl, she's just really passionate about movies. She has no money. And I said, like, hey, would you come to the thing? She goes, of course. I'm like, oh, it's $200 for a ticket. Yeah, absolutely. I want you to do your thing. Oh, that's right. People will do it. You have no idea. And people have come to see my movies now who I haven't spoken to since high school, you know? And then they show up and I'm like, you're here? And they're like, yeah, I've been watching what you're doing. It is so cool. It's like, oh, that's right. Anybody can be supportive of these things, and they might. They might ultimately do it. They might think it's the coolest thing. And if they can't give you money, they might give you resources, or they might give you, like I said, a location or something like that. Or they'll say, I'm really interested in this thing. I'd love to come to PA. You know, I'll do it as a volunteer for whatever. And that's valuable too, you know? So I think there's so many ways to get funding. Just don't go thinking, oh, I'm going to get $1 million for this thing off of Kickstarter. You're not, you know.
Set reasonable expectations.
Yeah, of course. And also, like, shoot your movie cheap. You know, if you're shooting your first feature, shoot it cheap. You know, if you're, or your first projects especially, shoot it cheap. You know, what are you doing? If you're 19 years old, 20 years old, you're just coming out of college. I know right now you think that the thing you're writing is the best thing ever. It's not. It sucks. I promise you, it sucks. I mean this in the best way. It sucks. Now make the thing anyway and learn from it, and do that for 7 years. You got to do it for 7 years. You got to suck at this for 7 years. It's the rule. It's a bare minimum. And then you'll start to be, okay, how do I make more money off, you know, how do I make more money to make these things look better and things like that. But yeah, I just think that people want movies to exist, and they want people that they went to high school with or whatever to be successful and to create these things and to tell these stories. I do believe that, and I have to believe that. But I don't know if you know Jim Cummings. He made Thunder Road, the short film, and the feature film and stuff like that. He said, like, the biggest thing he learned is that that you can't expect the audience to love the thing like you do. You have to make them. And so that's the thing, is just like, if you need money for this thing, make it difficult to say no to you.
Yeah.
You know? And so, yeah, I think, and I've tried to say this to a lot of filmmakers. I'm talking to one right now, and she's trying to get some money raised for something. And she had a Kickstarter that just fell apart, and she admitted it. And it's like, if you want to have conversations about like real ways that we can try to find money for this thing, let's start having conversations about that. Because like you said, there's ways outside of the box that you can obtain enough to make a feature, certainly. Yeah.
And is that, so your most recent film, you said obviously it's a much higher budget. Are you still operating in that kind of a fundraising mentality, or is it kind of a different ball game after a certain point?
It's certainly, for this project, it's a different ballgame. You know, I'm very lucky that our production company ended up investing a good chunk of the money, which comes from other sources. Now, there's a lot more pressure.
Yeah,
so,
seriously.
you know, this movie, you know, we're going to be in theaters, which is the coolest thing in the history of the planet. But
is this the first movie you've had that'll be in theaters?
It'll, besides, you know, like a premiere status, we're going to have a theatrical run. And it's, you know, at this time of recording, we're well over 100 theaters across the United States, which is cool.
Congratulations.
Thank you very
really
much.
Cool.
Thank you. And we're hoping by the time that it does hit theaters, you know, that we'll have 1,000. Fingers crossed, which would be incredible. But there's pressure there.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, we got to make the money back if we want to make another movie at this level. Like I said, we're still operating in what is considered the ultra low budget range, but it's just on the high end of it. So I was very lucky that we were able to get a good chunk of money from our production company, from our two main executive producers, Shawn, who I mentioned, and his business partner, Mike. And then my buddy Jay did invest a good chunk of money into it too. Because this one, we said, we can get this much money for this thing. Let's make it the best thing that we possibly can for what it is. And, you know, see if we can now start breaking into that space. And, you know, I'm writing notes in case things go well with Round the Decay for a sequel, you know, of course, just in case, which would be in that next budget tier. And our hope is that people will see the movie and we'll see how it does financially and makes its money back and things like that. And we'll go, oh, okay, cool. What can these guys do with a little bit more? But we know that we're going to have to self-do it again, and we're going to have to go to them. They're not going to come to us necessarily, you know?
For sure.
And I think it's the best time for indie film in that regard. I mean,
oh my God, isn't it? We've been saying this for a while now.
Yeah, I mean, you look at what like Terrifier's
Ace
doing.
Has been saying it for a while. He's giving me a look here. No,
it is the best time possible. I mean, I don't want to, you know, shit on the the bigger budget films or anything like that
Yeah, of
now.
course
But
not.
they're falling down, right? Because people are saying with their dollar, we want something else. We're tired of seeing retreads and things like that. And you go and see what Terrifier did, which is just absurd, and it's not my cup of tea at all. However, like it is clearly somebody's, off of, and their entire crew was our crew for this movie too. But you're seeing that there is this opportunity for these lower budget movies, which it's so much better now. You can make low budget movies look great because the equipment is so much cheaper. It's really the time, I think. And I think that hopefully studios and investors are going to start seeing this and saying, we need to be investing in new stories. And it might be smaller amounts than the $100 million that they were doing before. But there is a range for that $1 to $10 million movie that can make tons of money. So I think that our hope is that we're not going to be doing the exact fundraising methods that we used to. Fingers crossed. I'm always ready to go back to it.
It's so damn fun.
Yeah.
I listening to you describe this, I'm like, wow, not only a full-time job, but like it sounds like a fun process to go through.
Yeah, no, it is cool. I at least know I can always go back to it. And I also know that if I have to think outside the box, it's, filmmaking is creative storytelling, right?
Yeah.
It's finding ways to be creative about the budget that you have. And every single movie, I assume Spielberg is dealing with the same crap we're dealing. It's just multiplied, And so it's another thing. It's saying, hey, here's this problem and find a creative way to solve this problem. And it might be funding again. Okay, well, let's pretend that the movie doesn't make its money back. How do we make the next movie? How do we go about doing that? Do we have to do a fundraiser again? Do we go to crowdfunding? Can we go to this person? Can we go to that person? Who would invest this thing? Can we do points? Can we do, there's so many different avenues that you can possibly go when it comes to this. So, I'm hoping that we're finding our way out of it, and that more money will be coming, or bigger chunks of money, so we can make bigger things. I want to make things that are bigger and cooler.
Well, Jesus, man! I mean, the movie you just did is pretty big. I was talking with Ace about this earlier. I'm like, good Christ, how do you wrap your head around dealing with that big of a cast and like all the locations and the special effects? Yeah,
no, it was a lot.
That was a big cast.
Overall it was huge especially for what we have, and big cast. Like you said, locations,
special effects.
Oh my God, the stunts and the special effects. Yeah, no, it's huge. I don't know. Like I said, I'm probably an idiot when it comes to this. I don't think about it. And honestly, my editor and colorist, and he's also in the movie, he says that like the best quality I have is also one of the worst qualities I have, which is that I'll get into a space and be like, oh yeah, we can film here. And then I just don't think about any of the logistics. So like when it came to, we shot the movie in a mine. And what's cool about it is it looks like a mine. When you watch the movie, you're in a cave.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like a studio. It feels like we're there, which is so great. And so, but
sorry, I was just looking at a little
that's
spider
okay.
friend.
Sorry. But the thing is, when I saw the cave, I went, yes, this is a great filming location. I didn't think, oh my God, the logistics of getting in here, setting up heating bases because it was freezing, those things. You don't think about those things.
Yeah.
You just go, all right, I think I can do this with, this many days and whatever. And every time you're wrong, we shot over, so you've seen the movie. Right?
Yeah.
And
there's a lot of fun.
Thank you.
A lot of fun.
Yeah, but we shot it over 18 days, which is way too short.
Whoa.
And then we came back for 3.
Yeah,
well, because every day costs so much money, and so it was all right. We'll shoot this over 18 days. And what sucks is the compromises that you have to make. And I don't want to spoil anything for the kills, but there's some kills in there that we're like, oh, this is going to be cool. And they got less cool over time because you have to pick and choose your battles when it comes to it. It's like, all right, we could do that kill that we want to do. It's also going to take 2 or 3 days, and we have half a day. So what is it now? Like, what are you going to do now? That's all it is, though. Every time you get on set, you have, as long as you do a lot of work in pre, and I'm great in pre. I'm terrible in post. I'm really good at pre.
What is about post?
Well, I can't edit, first of all. I won't do it.
Yeah.
So I hate, once I'm done shooting a movie, my brain is immediately like, what's next? What's next? And so it's very difficult to do just notes and notes and notes and notes. I can't, have to watch the movie again and again. And I'm not watching it for story, at least first. It's like, what's the technicals that are going wrong? And then, and then you start watching story, but you watched it 1,000 times. Like, I have no idea if this is going to work for anybody anymore. The movie is, I don't think that the movie is particularly scary. It's not supposed to be particularly scary. It's more of an adventure movie. There's with a couple scares here and there, but I've seen The Monster 1,000 times. I'm like, this thing looks stupid when you're watching it over and over and over and over again. You know, it's very difficult to see through that. I'm very lucky that I have an editor and a colorist, and then we have someone that did the soundtrack and all that type of stuff. And they're very good at it, but my brain is like, I just want to write something else. I want to get back on set, you know, so.
So I like to ask this of,
Yeah,
you
sure.
know, directors in the editing process. So I'm going to extrapolate that
Sure.
you're not the kind of person who likes to sit there with the editor as they're making every cut. You probably, you distance yourself and you'll come back when, you know, there's something to see, something new.
He makes an assembly. That's the biggest thing. And he sends the assembly cut over to me. And when he sends the assembly, which is like everything that was in the script, you know, and so that movie ends up being over 2 hours. And it's the best assembly I've ever seen, where like I was like, oh, this is, I don't want to vomit, you know, like that, which is a good feeling. But no, it's like he does, you know, we send the assembly and then you stew on it for a bit and then go, okay, what's not working here? And obviously when that happens, we have no special effects in there, anything like that. It's not graded. It's not anything like that. So you have to try to see through that. And then we just start doing big drafts is what it is. So it'd be like, all right, so here's my notes on the thing. And I send them back over to him. He starts whittling away at those notes and starts doing his own notes. I trust him. He's my AD too. So he's you know, he's been around for the whole project, and he also
knows what you're going for.
And he doesn't mince words. He'll just be like, this looks stupid, and I think you need to cut it. And I'll be like, thank you for being that guy.
Heard chef.
Yeah, exactly. And there are times where it's like, I'm sorry, I have to put my foot down. I'm the director here, and I think this needs to exist. And he just goes, it's your movie. I totally understand. But oftentimes he just cares about the movie too.
Yeah.
And so we just whittle it down, and it feels like that's what it is. It's just whittling it down, trying to get it, you know, and I'm one of the people I'm big about cutting things. You know, he was like, here's the movie. And I went, I feel like we can cut these two scenes because I think it's doing the same thing that this other scene was doing. He's like, oh, that sucks because we lose a really cool suspenseful moment. I go, I know, but think about the audience. We need to think about, like, we can't, this movie's already an hour and 45 minutes. We can't be doing an hour and 55 minutes. I don't want people to be checking out. They're probably already checking out. So like, let's whittle away everything we can. Let's trim every ounce of fat that we possibly can. And so we're good at that, but I couldn't do it if I was just sitting there staring at the movie every single day. Once you get to the end of posting the movie that you guys have seen, I hope you guys go and see it in the theater again, because it's going to be a little bit different.
100%.
Yeah, because we have, I mean, like that, the color grade that we threw on that was quick and dirty. That was 3 days. We didn't have time. We didn't have to. Yeah, we didn't, like, some of our special effects need a little bit more work, because like we were just like running out of time, and we had that set that date months in advance, and it's like, let's just get it the best that we can here, and then we have to be ready for theatrical to trim away a little bit more.
When's that going to be? Are you able to say?
Yeah, so January 31st is when it's looking like we're probably going to be hitting theaters, which is great, which means that we have, right now, I have 1,000 notes that are just minor things. Oh, okay, well, this special effect didn't look great. Hey, this thing needs a little bit more motion blur. Hey, this thing, you know, the sound didn't punch.
So right now you're more at like a technical level.
Yeah,
It's locked, though.
Oh, yeah, it's absolutely locked. I mean, we are going to replace shots, but the time length of the movie will not change. You know, in this version, we went like, I think we're seeing the monster a little bit too much, a little bit too early. Let's make slight adjustments on that. And you don't realize it until you're sitting in with the theater, with the crowd, and you go, oh my God, what are we doing?
Have you seen it in a theater with a crowd?
Yeah. I saw it with Alex.
Oh, that's right. That's where you guys met. Yeah.
So
how was that experience for you? Was that the first time?
No. So we watched it the day before or 2 days before. The unfortunate thing is we had the rights to a song, a very popular song, and it was in the movie. And then the family pulled the rights to the song.
Ooh.
At midnight. The night before the screening.
What?
Yeah, so we ended up having to make a whole new DCP really fast and like get it over there, which was really tough. But we watched the entire movie together. He and I, my editor and I, we just watched it, and we said, all right, like, but we were paying attention to story beats. We were paying attention to technicals and making sure like every single, first of all, there was no shot that disappeared or anything like that the whole movie played. But just marking down things. And then we saw the whole movie with,
I'm sure when you saw it with an audience, you were then keenly aware and focusing on story.
I had a miserable time, honestly. I did.
Why?
Because you're just watching the movie and I'm thinking, What sucks is the movie, I don't think that the movie is particularly funny, but there are things that make people chuckle a little bit.
Yeah,
right?
what's the guy's name? Muffin?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's Jay Voichness. He's the guy who puts a lot of money into our movies.
Yeah,
it's
he's
amazing.
funny.
Yeah, and it's the first time he's ever acted in a movie. So.
I won't give away the scene, but I love his reaction.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That scene gets everybody, which is great. And it's it sucks because it's a drug. And so when there's an early scene that involves a character named Trevor, which, it's one of the things that takes place in the cave. And when that moment happened, I got addicted because the crowd reacted and I got addicted to it. And so I was like, I want the crowd to react to everything now. And when they weren't reacting to everything, that's when you're like, what am I doing? I made a bad movie. And then what's great is you get people to come up. Alex came up afterwards, was very kind. Whether he liked the movie or not, who knows? But he came up and was very kind, and everybody's very nice to you at that time. And I'm suspicious of everybody. So the moment they come up to me, I'm like, you're lying to me. You're just saying this because you're here and you have to. You hated it. You're a liar. You're a liar. And then we had another showing the next night. Same exact thing. I was sitting there, I was just stewing on the movie, and it wasn't being projected particularly well because we had to go through like an HDMI, and so we ended up losing all of our quality. And I'm sitting there and I'm stewing. I'm like, everybody hates this movie. I was lucky enough that 2 people in front of me were reacting in a good way. And then I finally watched it 2 days later at another big screening. The theater was nearly empty. It was just like a screening up in Belfast, Maine. There was 10 people in the crowd, and I finally watched it and I went, oh no, this movie's good. It's kind of cool. Like, I'm actually watching this movie unfold, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm seeing all the breadcrumbs that we laid out. Like, no matter what happens, I enjoyed this ride. And it's a movie that if I picked it up at a VHS store and at a rental place and I watched it, I would go, yeah, no, I'll watch that again. That was a lot of fun. It was a wild ride, and I cared about things that were happening. And I was very lucky that people that were there, or nobody knew me. It was just, oh, that spider is coming.
I think he's attached to my.
Oh God!
Maybe we detach, buddy.
There you go.
Get out of here.
And so I finally got to see it with a crowd of people that didn't know the movie, and that I let the movie take me over, and I went, oh, okay. That was the first time I watched the movie.
That must have been freeing.
Yeah, it was huge, and
maybe not freeing, but it must have come as like a weight off your shoulder.
It was when that happened. I went like, it's fine if people don't like this movie because I do. And like, I'm glad that it exists. And first of all, if a movie exists, it's a miracle. And
it's a huge miracle.
Because like they're so difficult to make. And I went, oh, I like this movie. And it's the type of movie that I think that a lot of people that are like me would enjoy it, which doesn't mean that everybody's going to, but it means that some people are going to think, oh, some people are going to go, this was a wild ride. Some people, someone was crying during the movie at the very end. And I went, okay, you know what? I feel pretty good. That means the emotional beats hit, which is really important. And then when I saw it at Belfast, I just felt really good about it. And then the crowd afterwards did a Q&A, and it was a very small crowd. But I've never seen people so passionate about it. And it was so unbelievable as they were just asking questions, and they asked about the budget, and I told them the budget, and they said, like, what? Like, the movie seems like it feels like it's several $1 million. Like, I've seen other movies that are, that are way 10 times the cost, and they look like junk compared to it. It's like, oh, that was such a great feeling. So when I finally came out of that, that's the first big screen experience, and they projected it properly and all that type of stuff. I went, okay, I can feel good about this movie now. And now we have to go back to work, of course, and get it prepared for the theater, which is, again, going back to the technicals and into the nitty gritty of it. But I do say that every movie in existence, every movie that's currently on your shelves right here is for me. It's been made strictly for me. I do, I have this arrogant feeling that like 12 Monkeys, which I'm looking at right now, was made for me. And they were all made for me. The only movies that aren't for me are the movies that I make. They're all for the rest of you. Like that's what we're making them for, because I love the story. I wrote it for one reason or another. It was really because I was going through a bad relationship, or just getting past a bad relationship. And I ended up making this thing, and you think that you're making this thing that you just want to see, but it's like, no, I'm making it for the rest of these people, where every other movie is the same way. And I can't imagine, you're so close to the thing, it's so tough to tell by the end of it. And that's what it's come to. It's like, I've gotten to that technical point. It was nice to watch it that one time and enjoy it for what it is. And now it's going back to that technical thing. And then, I can't remember who it is. I think it's John Huston that said, like, you make the movie, you put a picture frame around it, and then it's done. Yeah. And then you move on to the next one, and then you die. And that's what you do. You just keep doing that until you die. And so, I'm glad that we got through that phase, and it's the coolest thing in history that we're going to be playing in cinemas. I can't believe it.
What's that process like?
It's brutal because we're not going through a distribution route that's necessarily what everybody goes through when it comes to at least the theatrical. We're having conversations when it comes to, I have a conversation on Monday that's with a sales agent to see if, hey, are they going to end up taking care of our streaming, our merchandise? What's going on with that? because luckily people have come to us because of some of the names that are in the movie. And then because the technicals of it, it looks pretty solid. You know, we like to say that we can make a penny look like a dollar.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the theatrical, it was all new territory, and we're lucky that we're ignorant. We didn't really have any idea what it was like. And so what we started doing, and it's kind of based off of what our friends, I don't know if you guys saw the movie Founders Day, but our friends made that movie.
Why do I know that?
It came out in theaters. It came out in like 1,000 theaters across the country. It's a slasher movie. It's very much in the vein of Scream.
Okay.
And our DP is on it, and the director's we're kind of buddies with him. And so we ended up learning his process and how he attacked
with the distribution of theaters.
Yeah, and so much of it was him. It was just him being aggressive and going after and reaching out to these guys. And we're very lucky that we have Shawn on board, who is the most aggressive businessman I've ever met. And he just calls people constantly. And he got into a lot of these places, and because so many people are seeing Terrifier and stuff like that. Like Alex said, these people are seeing, oh, independent films are doing damage here. They're making money. People are coming out to see these things, especially if they look decent, and audiences are screaming for something original for once now.
Yeah.
And so we've just been able to kind of start establishing relationships that way and kind of leaking through all of that. And some people say no, and which is the best answer, because at least they tell us. If they're ignoring us, we're just going to bother them until they say something.
Yeah.
So it's been a lot of that, and then just connecting off of that, connecting off of another person, because we don't have huge money to market this thing, you know. So we have to find a creative way around it, you know. So it's been a weird process, and hopefully it will be the only time we really have to do it, because once you get the connections and they see that we have these movies, and we're trying to become a distribution company too. We're distributing, I talked to you a little bit before about that movie that I was on over in Detroit. We're distributing that movie theatrically, and we've signed a bunch of other movies for theatrical distribution when it comes to features. Just saying, you guys, once your features are done, you know, come to us and we'll start talking to you guys about it, because we want to be a theatrical distributor, but people that are focused on getting independent movies into these things. And because we've opened the door, and this is what I love about Shawn at Dreamscape, because I understand so many people there's so many gatekeepers in this industry, and we're so terrified. I think also people that make connections are so terrified of giving them away, because they're like, no, then I can't make my thing anymore. And Shawn, every step of the way, has said, like, we're going to break down this door, and then we're just going to let everybody else in too.
Yeah.
So it'll be like, we're through here. And not only that, hey, everybody, who you're independent filmmakers, let's share resources. Let's be sharing in these things so that we can help each other and we can make connections. And then once you guys make a connection with this theater or this distributor or whatever it is, and you say that they're good, we'll come to them, and then we'll bring you over somewhere else too. You know, so that's kind of where we're going with it. And yeah, the theatrical thing has been a little bit weird, but it's just like a new challenge. It's kind of cool, you know.
That's so much fun.
Yeah, like that you get to figure it out. And rejection sucks. It does, but you know, if you're a filmmaker and you're not getting rejected, then you're not doing something right. You know?
Yeah, you got to get used to it.
Yeah, it's part of the process. And
Part and parcel.
Yeah, and like nowadays, you know, it's just like, oh, okay, water off the back. Sure, we got rejected. Normal.
Moving on.
Yeah, exactly. And then once you get it's just like when you get a good take. All right, now let's move on. It's to the next one. You know. So
are you a Clint Eastwood, or are you a Kubrick? When it comes to takes.
Way more Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
We have 18 days to shoot. We don't have time.
As long as it was in focus.
Right. Yeah. The big thing we say is the first thing is it just has to exist.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. We are big about, hey, let's find the things that we really think are cool for this movie, whatever that is, and write the most ideal version of your script and write the most ideal version of your shot list. And from there, that's when you have to start making decisions and being like, we have 18 days. What can we shoot? What are the cool things that we do have to hit? There's an ice arena sequence in this. There's a button to that scene where we're like, we're getting this.
Yeah.
No matter what happens, we need to get this. This is important. That last sequence that takes place in the cave, I won't spoil everything. We're like, we need to get this scene right. We need to get this right. If we get this right, we're in decent spot.
Jesus, man, there's a shot in that sequence I'm obsessed with.
Oh, really? Thank you so much. That's so good. Which one are you talking about? The last sequence? Oh, thank you.
I don't think it's going to give anything away, but it's the shot with something going across
thank
her
you.
eyes.
Oh my God, thank you for saying that.
I saw that and I was like,
Thank you for
goddamn,
because that's been one of the shots that has been in my mind. That's the only I don't storyboard. I shot list everything because I can't draw. I have the worst hand skills in history, and so that's the only thing I storyboarded. Where I had to like download a storyboard app so that because everybody read it in the script and like, what does this mean?
Yeah,
and I was like, I need to show you on these pictures, and so that was one of the shots, and it was one of those things where I can tell that everybody is like, what the fuck are you thinking? Like, we're not going to use this. And then we did it. And what's so great is all the crew kind of came around it.
Was that done practically? Is there some VFX?
It was half and half. Yeah, so there was some VFX, but we did as much practically as we could because you have to sell the light.
Yeah.
And so we had to, in order to sell, you have to simulate it as close as you possibly can.
Yeah.
And the fact that you just asked me whether or not it was VFX is great. Yeah. Thank you for doing that.
High praise.
Yeah, no. So thank you for saying that because and that's one of those shots where it's like, we need to make sure we get that. And there's that button in the ice arena where it's like, we're getting this. We end up using, we put them on oh my God, what can I think of it? On a dolly, and we pulled back, and I was like, we're getting that shot. We need to get these shots. But then there's other ones you just have to compromise on. So Kubrick or Clint Eastwood, way closer to Clint Eastwood. I'm also going to lay this out there. I don't like any Kubrick movies. I've never liked any of his movies. So
fun.
Yeah. So like I'm glad to step away from that. And I also think like it just feels like it's overkill. Just get the performance the best that you can. That's the most important thing is getting the performance. It's about an actor's face.
Yeah.
Ultimately, this movie, whether or not it works for people will lie or claim that, oh, the script doesn't work or blah, blah, blah. It's ultimately whether or not you believe one person's face at looking at another person. That's really what it comes down to. So it's like try to get the performances the best that you can. Always, always, always allow an actor to have another take if they need one. If they ask for one, give it to them. Please just give it to them. Don't care about your day. Just give them that one take because it is so important for them, for their confidence going forward. But yeah, we're like, unless it's a technical, we're typically, 2-3 takes and then we're done.
We're on the move.
Yeah, I mean, like if we get it once, you always want to get it again.
Yeah.
But yeah, you got to be flying through the technicals. You get to like 7 or something like that. We have a couple oneers in the movie where, there's a
nice oneer when she comes to the hotel.
Yes,
and they
in the lobby.
tell her. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was saying earlier, I was like, it's funny you don't like Kubrick.
Yeah.
I was like,
the oneers.
I see what he's doing here. This is very Kubrick.
That was actually a planned oneer. So what sucks oftentimes in filmmaking, I hate it, but there's the planned oneer, which I had planned that oneer. And we did that in 7 takes or whatever. I think we ended up using like 5. There are so many oneers that become oneers because you've run out of time. You don't have time to cover things.
No time, yeah.
Yeah, and so you design a oneer in the moment because you're like, crap, I don't know what to do. And that's what sucks when you're watching a film. I'll be like, why are they doing a oneer here? And it's like, because they had 2 hours of daylight left and they had to do it right. That's exactly, and it does suck. But yeah, no, every now and then it's nice to get the shots that you do like. And it's, like I said, it's picking and choosing those battles, which ones you're going to do. And also which ones are going to excite the crew.
Yeah.
Like I knew that dolly shot, that pullback shot, when I explained it to him, he went like, oh, hell yeah, we got to do this. I go, okay, good. You're coming on for this movie at least just for that. Yeah. So that shot has to stay, I hope that, as I'm writing notes for Around the Decay 2, in case it ever happens, it's just notes. I start making a little budget. I mock up a little budget and I go, what if we had 30 days? And so I write down the 30 days and then I start thinking about what are the battles that I'm going to have to fight already, because I have the notes. I have at least the general beats of it. And I have a sequence that takes place in a van and I'm like, can I get it? Well, is that going to be one of the ones I fight for, or is it going to be one of the ones that dies and it turns into a very different sequence? So, yeah, it's just picking and choosing which one's going to be and which one's going to hopefully sell more to an audience.
God damn, man, I'm so happy to have had a chance to talk with you. I feel like I learned. This was very brief, but I learned a shit ton in this one conversation.
Well,
I'm
thank you.
So enthralled by everything you're doing. I can't wait to hear about how the theater run goes.
Yeah, I'd love to come back.
Yeah, we definitely have to have you back.
Yeah, oh please.
This is a great conversation.
Thank you.
Is there anything? I don't even think I can ask you right now. Like, is there anything else you're working on? Obviously, you're working on a bunch of stuff.
Well, yeah, no, of course. First of all, if you want to follow us, we have Dreamscape Productions LLC. That's on Instagram. I'm director Adam Newman on Instagram, stuff like that. Please follow us. because we also have like little sheets on there where if you want to act with us, like go and fill out that form. If you want to be part of our projects, we want to bring more people on. We call it the Merry Band. And if you're on board on the Merry Band and you love it, you're in for life. We want you. And if we don't work with you on one project, we're coming back. Don't worry, So working on stuff. Yeah, like I said, writing notes for Round the Decay 2, just in case. Always have to. Writing, obviously preparing Round the Decay for the theatrical run. That's a big part of it. But I won't stop writing. I can't stop writing. So I was writing something. We've been swearing. It's currently called Dog Shit.
Yes.
And
yes, I love that title.
And so I've been working on that, which was, an adjustment from, I was originally going to be called Let's All Fuck in the Cabin. So I started writing something like that, which is it's a dirtbag crime movie because I love dirtbag crime. Like I said, I just watched Blue Ruin for the first time. The movie is so damn good. And like it inspired me so much. And then I rewatched Take Shelter because of it. And so I've been in like a dirtbag crime mood. So I'm writing something like that. I'm always writing notes on like a fantasy story that I want to do. I really wanted to do like a TV series, especially because I just got back into Arcane, which is so damn good. If you're not watching that show, you should be watching it.
What is it?
Arcane.
I've
It's
never
on
heard of
Netflix. It's based off of a terrible online video game. However, the show is so damn good. It's really like watch it. Netflix, it's like 9 episodes each season. There's only 2 seasons and they're done. But that's really got me inspired to do something like that. I always want to make a trashy B horror movie again because they're fun to make, to just go out in the woods, throw around some blood. That's kind of fun. So I'm always writing something when it comes to it. Nothing set in stone yet. Probably the most set in stone would be like preparing Round the Decay 2. I will have, a solid outline within the next couple of weeks, which I will pitch to my producers at least to be like, hey, this is kind of what I'm thinking in case this does go well. Let's just be prepared that if this theatrical goes well, that maybe we could be shooting this thing even as early as next fall. So that's kind of where I'm aiming. But if you talk to me tomorrow, I'll probably have a new script idea because I'm probably going to think of something tonight.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Sweet.
Well, good. Thank you for your time.
No, thank you.
Super happy you came down.
Thanks so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Adam Newman. Check him out. Check out his work. It's awesome. All right, guys. Later.
Thank you.